Thanks for staying with us. We found this story and we thought it was worth discussing. A handler recently wrote that generational wealth is a sham. According to him, he had to work hard so as to be where he is, and also his children must do the same to make it. He further stated that he will finish his wealth before leaving the earth, leaving nothing for his children and next generation. So the question is, shouldn't parents look forward to leaving a legacy for their children? We'd like to hear your thoughts on this. So join the conversation on 081-270-53687 or 091-390-76948. Ladies, will you finish your money before you die? Tell us.
So that's not the only person who has that philosophy. There is this actor too, James Bond actor, Daniel Craig, who said this recently, that isn't there an adage that says that if you die rich, you have failed. That's according to him.
Wow.
And so he has 2 children. He has a 29-year-old and he has a 2-year-old. His wife too has a teenage child, you know. And one is wondering, because one would think that maybe he doesn't even have children. And so he says he's not going to leave his multi-dollar fortune for anyone. He's going to spend everything before he dies. All right.
Is that even possible?
I like the way everybody laughed.
Is that even possible?
I don't know if you think that is not possible, because you know, in that climb, people do retire. Sometimes, you know, some of them retire. And when they retire, they just want to live their life. They have other thoughts. They just want to
go on vacation.
I want to be on vacation on a yacht. Yes. Living my life, you know.
And they spend the money.
And spending the money because I've worked for it. So I actually think that it depends on the individual. If you ask me, I think it is about the philosophy, because some people will be like, I did not inherit anything. I worked so hard for this, and you should work so hard for it. And maybe some people would say that, yes, I've worked so hard for it. I have the money, but I don't even want my children to start thinking that they don't have to work. They have to put in the work, even if you have to inherit something in the long run. Because some of us, we are crying like, hey, no inheritance. So
my sister,
Joanna, hard. Oh my
Miriam. What's your
Okay,
thought?
so I mean, it's your right to choose whether to leave physical, cash, or assets for your generations to come. But I believe that there are different types of wealth, and that sometimes when a particular generation, the present generation, has worked hard, you would have left, whether it's cash or not, you would have left other forms of wealth for your children. You've taken them to the best schools. There's a status that maybe comes with your name that they already have.
Enjoy.
So that alone, for any right-thinking child, any well-behaved child, sort of has the perks and the advantages of just coming from that sort of family, and they can use it. So I can understand why someone would say, after giving you all this, I will take away the cash, because I have laid the ground for you. I have wet the ground for you. You can now plant your own seeds. But if we keep this money in your hands, we've seen many families where there was a statistics I read, and it showed that almost 90% of the wealth of a family is lost by the 3rd generation.
They squander it.
Squandered. Because they don't even know how it started. They don't have the dream and the physique and the mindset to push, to fight for things like you had, because maybe from your time, things were tough. And you understood that I had no other option but to win, but to hustle, but to make sure that I do the most for myself and for my family. And then you have these children who were born in the bed of luxury. They don't know what it means to hustle. They don't understand what it means to suffer. All they know is that I wake up,
I want this,
yes, and I get it. And maybe parents have seen that work out and play out in many families, and they're saying, no, I'll give my child an opportunity to also fight for what they need, especially if I've provided for them everything that can help them achieve their own wealth.
Nima, what do you think?
It depends, because I have a faith that emphasizes on, you know, how you leave what you have behind, not necessarily wealth or riches. Because when people talk about inheritance, you're looking at your grandparents and thinking, where are the riches? What I understand about that is, like Miriam said, the 3rd generation. But before then, who first get an old model. So whatever your generation had at the time, whatever wealth meant. So in the days of our mothers, wealth meant clothes. And yes, and you know, my mom would say, I remember when I was much younger, she would keep her bottom box. She came with all the royal beads from her father's house, being a princess, all those things. And in primary school, I lost everything because I don't know the one that is value. You know, and when she put golds on me, the gold 1 year will not come back, that kind of thing. So I really didn't know. And so as I was growing up, I just had a different view to material things. I just knew I don't want to ever be bothered about whether something was expensive or whether it was rich and all of that. So I remember my wedding, and it was a list of what they needed to buy. I said, don't worry yourself. I don't know the difference of Hollandis and Ankara or Naklot. I don't know. So don't bother. I just like to look good. And it's my body that I used to carry cloth, not the cloth the other way. So really. And when she will start to pack things and say, this is what you go to your in-laws' house with, when you get there, you give your child. I say, don't worry. When it's her time, whatever is in vogue would interest
new
her.
models.
So she would work at getting it. And so my dad would smile because that's the kind of view he has to life. And he'll be like, this one gets my,
gets
you know.
it.
So eventually, properties didn't really bother any of us as we were growing up because that was what they wanted us to learn. So now we've lost our patriarch and nobody waited for anything to be shared. We voluntarily just said, leave it as it is for one person. So let everybody just, you know, go.
Wow.
So that's how we understand wealth. But in Islam, because some people struggle over materialism, we're encouraged to put it in writing. Whatever you have, if you're even on a journey, you're dying, leave an instruction for the 1/3 of your estate. Leave an inventory of everything that you have. So that the Quranic heirs, which are your lineage, by how do I call it? By your groins, your children, your bloodline, are not left uncatered for. It is wrong that when you die, you just go into abject poverty. Islam doesn't encourage that. So whatever you have to give them a buffer. Give them, but it's not riches. So that people are not then greedy. You know the way we think here is, you're not doing your Toshimo, that kind of thing. If you're not dealing with Toshi, it's not you who avert it. That's the mistake. I know someone who left his child 100 million naira estate. And within 2 years that she took it, she didn't even know how. She thought she was doing the right thing and then she was just a pauper all of a sudden. So some things are not avertable. But if you give the child the skill to know better, to know how to manage wealth, and then maybe you leave something. Okay, leave them a grant to start their own business. Leave them something they can sell as money and start. And you give them the skill that it's always good to be honest and make legitimate halal money. Your child doesn't necessarily go into abject poverty. But this generational wealth is an African thing we hear all the time that, my generation to come will never be broke. So you see people, and it encourages such level of corruption here. Most of our politicians, leaders, have that mentality where they want to amass. We remember the big names. When you see their grandchildren today, they don't even have the ideologies that their forefathers had that built this nation.
Yeah, but Nima, there's a part of the scriptures that says, a good man layeth up riches for his children's children. I think that's where a lot of people began to say, okay, as I'm working, I've hustled through life. I wouldn't want my child to start from where I started from. So if, peradventure, I started from 1 bedroom with a mat, there was no bed, I was cooking with firewood, there was no stove and all that, I wouldn't really want my children to start from that level. So everybody has their levels, but shouldn't I, keep something that would help them, just cushion them to start? And if peradventure, I now make it big, this is my peradventure, I now make it big, shouldn't I leave something that will make their lives easy?
Okay, so I have a story, and this is a true life story. I know one of these people, and this that happened, the parents didn't know that they were going to die, both of them, on the same day. And they were quite young. Now, I visited this person once, and I saw all the things the parents left. They were quite young. They were children, when the parents died, and they both died on the same day.
Wow.
And I think they have good family members who took care of them and helped them with whatever thing their parents left. But I saw that they had more than one house. And I wondered if the parents knew that they were going to die early because they were quite young. They were, I mean, those children were barely, children, as I said. And the parents, too, were very young. So I don't know how they got that wisdom to quickly work for whatever thing, as if they just knew that they were going to die.
Wow.
And that is what I can say has helped those children. They grew up and the families left something, gave them those things that they kept for them. And they sent them through school and all of this. So I think for those people, they would look back and they would appreciate the inheritance. So I think because of maybe unseen circumstances and all of this, then you can say that you just want to protect your children. And as Miriam said, when you send your children to good schools, because I think that is one of the things I would say my own parents gave me. They sent me to a convent boarding house, and it was good. It was good. I learned so much from there. As people talk about, oh, he has disadvantages, he had disadvantages and all that. You saw just the advantages. In fact, the advantages for me, oh my gosh. Like, okay, I started working, and my colleague told me that, oh, she had to go for a business lunch, and she did not know how to behave there. I used my complete set of cutlery from GSS 1 to I know how to set my table. I know how to drag my feet when I walk. I know how to carry myself as a lady. I know that when I wake up in the morning, I meditate. So I know all of those things. So I think it is one of the things that they have given me. It might not be money like physical cash.
Yeah, so let's take a short break. When we come back, we take phone calls and messages. Stay with us.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So we have Honorable Oshu from Ikeja calling. Good morning, Honorable. We lost that. So I wanted to ask, a question. I know that one of the reasons some people are being skeptical about leaving generational wealth is because they have seen over the years how some children have squandered the monies left by their parents and grandparents and everything. And everybody's praying to have a child who has sense, so to speak. But if you now have a child who is what I call an ifulef, who doesn't want to apply, you have done everything. So their children you have sent to the best schools abroad and everything, and they come back and they're not even interested in what you're saying. They just want to live a big life, not understanding the hustle you went through as a parent to get them to where they are. Would you consider leaving anything for that sort of child?
Okay, this is what I think. I think it's the values that you teach your child that eventually inherit. So you who taught your child luxury, buy it, anything you want, pay for it. The child would grow entitled, think I can afford it. My parents have already worked the money. My dad used to say, he had a friend who was from a generational wealth. And his mother was passing and was dragging my father that, please, there's a reason I want him to be your friend so that he doesn't waste everything because his lifestyle, women, everything, he just takes and wastes. Even the partner they had to get him to marry, they kept, since they couldn't train him, tried to train the wife so that the generation after him, his own children, don't come broke. The parents did their work, but he was the last child and they didn't force him to...
They didn't teach him.
They tried. They tried, but he just felt entitled. So it's important that parents do much more than try. And for some children, let them go through it. And so the parents forced him to the college where my dad was training then. And even though his elder ones were in the US, medicine and all of that, he was in that college where my father thought, this is where I am. This is when they saw his family and what are you doing here? The parents said, it's because of the kind of child he is.
Nima, hold that thought. Let me take this call from Ibrahim. Ibrahim from Nasarawa State. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Ibrahim from Mararawa, Nasarawa State calling.
Good morning. You're live.
Thank you. I'm a first-time caller.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's quite a very interesting topic and issue under discussed. Just like the rightly said about the Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22, it said, a good man leaves inheritance for his children.
Yeah.
And I want us to look beyond this context. This inheritance of a thing is beyond material things. That is the way I see it. when you have children and you don't offer them quality education, you don't offer them what they should do to get what they need to do in life legally and morally. Honestly, you have not left any inheritance for them. It's a very good thing for a father to leave inheritance for his children, at least for, not for anything, but at least they should have a start of something in their life. But it should not be the most primary thing for a father to do that, killing himself to look for money for the children. Once you can offer them education, fear of God, I think you have done your best for them.
Wow.
Yes. Wow.
Inheritance is a good thing for a father to leave for his children.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Yes, you were finishing up the story of...
So for that parents, they tried to force that value. And when they saw that he still was having difficulty with it, they put the people around him to force the thought. So they willed what they had to the wife. Yes, and, you know, the friends around him, they made them, you know, people who would talk to him. I remember growing up, when he comes to my house, we used to call him, "Where your papa?" And that's what, because that's what he says to us all the time when
Where
he comes
your papa?
So look for my dad. And my father would say, "This is my friend, you know, this is how the parents are concerned about him." You know, so when you have a child like that and you know that the values are what you want to give, but the child is not learning it, you have to find a way to force it, because no matter what you leave for that child,
It will squander
you
it.
close it will be gone in seconds with the kind of lifestyle they're used to. And then maybe we shouldn't just allow our children this kind of lifestyle. We should make sure that, as the last caller said, teach them the
to
things
work.
that will live longer than material things. For some children, they don't have the intention to waste, but life happens. So how do they get back up? This resilience, because they never know. Some people have never, you know, they're just confused and they slip into depression, and that's it. Some people just go suicide, and that's all they think about. We're Nigerians, we're known to be resilient people. So if you find your wealth being squandered, you do something about it. You get up and make new wealth.
So I totally agree with Nima. You know, how you train your children, the values you inculcate, those are the things that they are going to grow up and, you know, those ones will come in handy wherever they find themselves, whether you left something physical for them or you did not, they have to work for it. But one thing, well, I talked about school the other time, how my parents sent me. My parents weren't rich, or will I say that, well, my father is late, my mother is still alive. Not that do you understand? They were just, and they tried. They really tried to like. And so what I understand is, especially when you send or you want to choose schools for your children, according to my parents, they didn't say it over, but I think they're just buying you, you know, that thing that we call network these days, that, you know, so they're looking for a school that, you know, the people that you mix with at the end of the day, you know, looking at the future. They can actually, that can help you to a large extent, perhaps. I mean, all right. But then I would like to talk about succession plans too. You know, in Nigeria, we really do not have that succession plans. Yes, you might have all the money in the world. And that is why we talk about certain brands and we're like, oh, so they've been like that forever. They have a recipe they use and they stayed like that. But here in Nigeria, you find somebody who is very rich. And then the person passes on, and somehow everything just collapses. Nothing to, you know, pass on, or and maybe they even left, but as you said. So we really do not have that writing will, you know.
Yes. We don't like to write wills. Yeah.
We don't like to write wills. We don't have it. We hear it all the time.
And
but you know how, because we are religious, I will not die in Jesus. Even when your wife is saying it to you, you're looking at your wife in a
sick bed.
Do you
will not die in
understand?
Jesus'
So
name.
number one, we do not have that. We do not write wills, and we do not help our children, even if they do not want to do what we do exactly. You can help them. Maybe one of them can like what you, and it might not even be like your children who inherit it or take over your company. It might even be staff who have been working for your parents.
All right, let's take this call from London. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning, Emily.
My name is Angoli.
Angoli.
Angoli, A-N-U-L-I. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for this great conversation.
Thank you.
Mariam, hi.
Hi.
Hello. Well done, you're doing such a great job as usual. And first, condolence to Murayo. Really sorry for the loss.
Thank you.
To talk about this conversation today about generational wealth. My understanding about inheritance is that it's relative. The way you understand inheritance might be different from the next person, right? And that understanding and application goes with the way we are raised and then the way we raise our children. So for me personally, I've got stories. When I was growing up, yes, privileged background, but in uni, my parents refused to buy me a car. I had to enter bus like everybody else, stay on campus like everybody else, because they're trying to instill into me the importance of hard work. You work hard. Education is very important to get what you want. You fly all the business and all of that, but there's always teaching there. Going to secondary school, I write 2 sets of provisions. My mother will cut me down with her red pen to 1.5. Go and manage. Go and learn how to manage. Another inheritance I really praise God for is that my dad loves to read. And it's that inheritance of education and reading books we took from him.
Wow.
So he will always take us every time we go out of the country. Trust me, we're visiting libraries and we're visiting bookstores. And he's trying to instill into us the importance of books. So there's a particular bookstore in London, Foyle's Bookstore, that my dad took all of us to. I went to a bookstore for the first time with my dad. And my daughter is 7, and I kept telling her about taking her to a bookstore when the pandemic is over. And by God's special grace, during the summer, it was one of the list of things to do. I took her to the bookstore that my father took me to, showed her where all the books are, how you can select books. But that is an inheritance.
Yes.
What am I trying
Awesome.
to say? Whatever you...
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angeli. Miriam.
Okay, so, I mean, I agree with everyone at the table and everyone that's been calling. And I just wanted to maybe take it to another angle where we're now talking to parents or families who have this wealth and they are thinking, I'm not going to pass it on. You know, I referred earlier to an article that I'd read and it was talking about generational wealth, where it says that 7 out of 10 families, of the families that they had used for this particular survey and study, 7 out of 10 of them had lost their wealth by the 2nd generation, and 9 out of 10 families had lost their wealth by the third.
Wow.
So it's saying that some of the reasons why generational wealth, disappears or fritters away is because the generation that has the wealth does not prepare the generation coming after it to take over, to take the wealth, to grow the wealth. It says people, yes, believe that wealth begets wealth, but it's not just the availability of it that begets wealth. It's how to hold it, how to manage it, how to multiply it, how to create it. And most parents do not do that. It talks about parents do not talk to their next generation about money. The only thing that the child knows is how to spend it. And they said also, there's another myth where it shows that the children tend to squander the money, but the children learn their money habits from their parents, from the generation before them. So if because you had that money and all they saw was how you spent it, not how you made it or how you multiplied it, that is the way they would.
It's a problem.
Would live
Hold
their
on
life.
there. Let me hold that thought. We have a caller, Honorable Ashu from Ikeja. Good morning, Honorable. We lost him. Okay, so finish up.
Yes, okay. And then there's another one, which is how the children spend the money. The children will spend the money on the sort of things that you spend money on as well.
Yeah, watching.
You know, you had talked about those luxuries, so they would spend on luxury because that's what they have learned. So sometimes it's the failure already starts from the generation that has money. So if you want your next generation to be able to build on the wealth that you have created in this generation, then you must prepare them. They must understand financial literacy. There are a couple of people I met some time ago, I think I mentioned them to you. They come from wealth. And I find them quite naive in the way they are with people. I'm like, sometimes I question, how do you come from such an advantage and you don't understand to be wise about who you
bring close to you,
what you say to people, because the fact that you have so much wealth, there's a mark on your head. There are people who are looking at you who really want to be friends with you. There's somebody are thinking you're an easy way for them to get out of whatever situation. So there are people just surrounding you that want to use you. And I don't see their parents, you would see their parents are smarter, are wiser about this, but their children are so naive and laid back about life. So you need to prepare your child for the sort of wealth it is that you're handing over to them.
I'm going to say
this is awesome.
Yes, I'm going to take a cue from what you have said.
Okay, hold on a bit.
Okay.
I want us to direct the conversation because I think we have just a few minutes before our guest for today. How do we begin to build values in our children, whether we have the wealth or not?
So,
what are some of those things that we want to leave behind so that no matter what happens, they can stand on their own 2 feet?
I am just going to say one thing, and that is, it might not necessarily be the hard things that you start to teach your children, but one of the things I learned from my parents, anytime I wrote my list of provisions, my father would say to me, because there were people who brought 4 sets of provisions to school, they had everything. Now, my parents did not make me see or think that they had everything. And even if they had the money, they would tell me that, you see, if you're going to have cornflakes, you might not have golden one. You might have to. So it was a scale of preference for me. And one thing I tell people all the time, because it has helped me, I am not that person who says because somebody has bought a designer bag and then I go and kill myself over it. Because I remember vividly, I started working and somebody was selling a designer bag and told me to come and buy. And I told the person that I couldn't afford it. She was like, no. I said I had exceeded my budget for the month. That was just keeping it mildly. And she was like, no, you can hold it anytime you have the money. What she mentioned was more than my salary. Where was I supposed to get it? I couldn't even afford it, and I had to tell her the truth. So I am not one that pretends, and that is what I have learned. And I discovered that, you know, coming for me when we're going on holidays, my parents would ask, well, did you borrow anything from anybody? They just wanted to, like, you know, sort it out and all that. And then they would discover that I did not even collect anything from. I was content, and it was because of the things that
your business.
Yes, and I think it was just the way they trained me.
Yeah, Nima, what are some of those things that we can? Because you are a value integrity sort of person. And I really admire how you handle certain situations. So help, you know, parents out there who are watching, who feel, because I have this, I can easily just make their lives easy and not pay attention.
So it's not necessarily giving your children a hard life that trains them.
Okay.
It's letting them learn what the power, Maya mentioned it, how to work at money. So you can't be a farmer and all your child sees is the harvest, not the planting. I met a young lady, I'd seek apologies later. Her name, she has a business called Onidoko in Surulere. And when I came there, I assumed it was generational wealth because right in the middle of the business is her grandmother's picture. So I was like, this is what informed this business. You can't be in this kind of business because it's for older people. And she smiled. She said, no, this woman was a market woman on the island.
Wow.
But she lived with her grandmother. She learned how to run a business. I'd like to have an expose on this woman. Young, amazingly hardworking young woman, and I just kept studying her. For her, she thought I was the fan, I was the star, but I was famsing the woman. So you teach your children, no matter the situation, and this person knows how to live well. She dresses well, she's not poor, but she earns her money legitimately. Yeah. So you teach your child, no matter what you love, learn to earn the means to it legitimately. You put proper value. So what I would never do is steal to live. I would never do, you know, so those values. As long as that line is not crossed, I can buy myself anything that I call luxury. Yes. Whatever I call luxury doesn't have to be what you call luxury, but what I consider my own luxury is good for me. And I always say to you, why do you need 3 cars when you can only drive 1 per time? And why do you need a mansion when you can sleep in one corner of the house? So
there was something I did recently. So my daughter met me and said she wanted a phone. And she gave me the name of the phone. You know, when they go to all these kind of schools, they hear things and everybody's doing shaprapra. Once I want it, I tell my parents they can get it for me. I said, okay, what skill do you want to use now to earn the money for this phone? And he said, I can write. I said, okay, write a book, complete the book. It gets to publishing. I will get you a phone to appreciate what you've done. And from the proceeds we'll start saving money for you to get the things that you want. And we have been going back and forth on this. She's like, Mommy, I don't like talking to you. I prefer to talk to Daddy. I said, Daddy will not answer you on this one because I begged my husband, I said, we need to start building the value. Exactly. You work hard, I work hard. They need to see it. It's not just the pizza and ice cream and everything. They need to see the process. And then there was a time in primary school, my son was writing storybooks and selling in school. And the teacher was upset. And when he came, I said, was he stealing? No. He was selling storybooks and people were buying. when I got home, I told my
Making
son,
money.
you're a businessman. You will join me in this business. So we really need to focus on the values that we give to our children, whether we have the money or not, so that in case anything happens and we are not there, they will be able to stand on their own 2 feet. That's all we can take on this story. When we come back, we move on to other topics. Stay with us.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.